perhaps our biggest struggle is the fact that we're in fight or flight and it's not the ADHD itself. I have a bit of a controversial take that I think a lot of what we call ADHD symptoms is actually dysregulation symptoms. I have not experienced paralysis in 2 years. I used to get stuck on the couch for days and weeks.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. Many of you have written into me about thinking you have ADHD, feeling like you have ADHD, wanting me to talk more about ADHD. So what I thought would be more productive than me talking about ADHD, because certainly I know about it, but I am not an expert. But do you know who is an expert? This lady, Jenna, who wrote this book called The Simple Guide to ADHD Regulation, The Secret to Finding Balance, Getting Things Done, and Enjoying Your Life. And she is an ADHD sufferer herself, besides being a counselor. And she got diagnosed when she was in her early 30s. And so I know a lot of you can identify with that. She specializes in working with the ADHD brain to get out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And getting it to work at its best while sort of honoring the neurodivergence and all of our own uniquenesses. But it's a different approach to ADHD. And I see, like, it makes so much sense to me that she focuses more on ADHDers' lives, right? Making them more enjoyable while also making them more productive, but understanding when you understand an ADHD brain, you know that adding another task on a to-do list is probably not going to be the thing that gets you there. So she dropped so many wisdom gems in this interview. What I've read of this book so far is really wonderful. And I think it really is an original approach, having so much more to do with the nervous system regulation. So yeah, if you are suffering from ADHD or you know someone, please tune in to this episode. I hope you enjoy it because I really did enjoy interviewing Jenna. Well, welcome back to the Terri Cole Show. I'm super excited to welcome a brand new guest who has not been here before, Jenna, to the Terri Cole Show. Welcome, Jenna.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, I'm super pumped to talk about The Simple Guide to ADHD Regulation, The Secret to Finding Balance, Getting Things Done, and Enjoying Your Life. Look at that beautiful book, baby, you guys, especially those of you with ADHD or those of you who love people with ADHD, because I just feel like now we just talked about everyone on planet Earth. So
it's true.
Just all the people. All right, so before we get into the book, I have tons of questions about the book and how people can use it and what people should do. And actually, one of my kids has ADHD, so this really is a topic that is close to my heart. So I appreciate all the work that you've done in this topic. But before we get into that, I'm always fascinated by why we do what we do. And all of us do what we do for very specific and particular reasons. So let's say you were a Marvel movie character. What would your origin story be that got you here?
Absolutely. So it was really when I had 2 kids in a year and a half that I felt I was struggling at a degree that was not quote unquote normal. And this is when I started looking into what might be going on with me more so than just I'm unique, which is what I always thought before that, because I was coping well enough. And I did get a ADHD diagnosis at 32. In shock to everyone in my life. I've done quote unquote well in life, and I was not hyperactive. I didn't have any of those traditional symptoms. So it was quite surprising for people who don't know the ins and outs of ADHD.
Yeah.
But I got that diagnosis when I was in grad school to become a therapist. So I was just on the tail end, about to graduate. And that gave me a hard pivot into wanting to work with ADHDers because I wanted to understand myself and help others. So I did the programs, with my university, with things I could find online to learn about helping ADHD clients. And it was very externally based. Calendars, tools, strategies, hacks, tips.
Yeah.
But I did it. That's what I was taught. So that's what I did. But clients would come back again and again and again, not doing what we talked about because I mean, they're already overwhelmed. They already feel like they don't have time to do everything they wanna do, so to add more to their plate was probably pretty, unlikely to happen.
Yeah.
But what I did notice in that time, I was working with many clients, so hundreds of hours talking to ADHDers. What I did see is that we all had the exact same cycle of this frantic crash routine. So I'm either elevated, I'm heightened, I'm in frantic energy,
Hmm.
urgency, intensity, maybe freeze, right? Because that can still be an intense experience, even if you're not moving around.
Right.
Or I couldn't even get off the couch.
Mm.
And it was these extremes, and every single person I talked to had the same experience. So, from my knowledge in my training as a therapist and in my own experience and doing more research, really seeing how that is the exact symptom kind of cycle
Mhm.
of being in fight or flight. And the fact that I had never met one ADHDer who did not have those symptoms,
Right.
I really started to connect the dots of
Mm.
perhaps our biggest struggle is the fact that we're in fight or flight and it's not the ADHD itself. And from that day on, that's all I worked on with people, and it has been much more successful and profound than the tips and tools that I started with.
Okay, so basically pivoting to like nervous system regulation on a regular basis is what you're saying?
Yeah, so I did from there develop an approach that I think works really well for ADHDers. Is a little bit more simple, logical,
Mhm.
and actionable, as opposed to uh, kind of more based in like how we feel, and the somatic work is important, but that's a little tiny piece of my work.
Mm.
And what's been so cool is how people take these tools, respond to them, and lower their ADHD symptoms, which, I have a bit of a controversial take that I think a lot of what we call ADHD symptoms is actually dysregulation symptoms.
That does not sound incorrect to me at all. So let's talk a little bit about what for someone who is living in a cave and is like, what are ADHD symptoms? Can you just talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Absolutely. So the biggest ones I hear about are paralysis, task initiation, really just this feeling of stuckness. Like I know what I want to do, I know how to do it, but I just can't make myself do it. Avoidance,
Mhm.
productive procrastination, even. I'm busy,
Yeah.
but I'm not getting to the important stuff.
Right.
And on the flip side, urgency, uh, impulsivity. So the things I am doing, I'm not thinking about it, I'm not mindful. I'm just in this reactive place.
Mm.
And then we can have irritability, frustration, and the emotional side as well. So those would be the biggest ones I hear, especially from adults.
And what I hear a lot from my own therapy clients is the inability to finish tasks, like starting
Hmm.
tasks, but not being able to get to completion for whatever the reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So what let's just say someone tuned in to this interview and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I just received my own
Mm,
diagnosis of ADHD. What should they do first?"
absolutely. And this is my dream in life is that this would become the prescription. Oh, you have
Mm.
ADHD? Let's get you out of fight or flight. That is the first order of business because no tools, no strategies, no hacks, even medication is not going to touch that piece. And
Mm.
if that's our foundation is in a state of protection, fear, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, blood flow leaves the prefrontal cortex. I am not able to think clearly.
Right.
That lowers executive functioning. So let's get that going first. And so I do have a three-layer approach: the physical, more traditional nervous system regulation work, thought and belief regulation work, and then behavior. So the first piece, which we can only do this work one tiny step at a time, so nobody needs to tackle all of that at once.
Mhm.
The first piece that I see helps ADHDers specifically regulate is to really work on our rushing.
Mm.
So physical rushing, the mental rushing, and impatience. If we can start, firstly, just identifying that as dysregulation and not, that's just how I am, it's
Right.
just ADHD. Okay, the first step is the awareness of, oh, that's me in fight or flight.
Mm.
So that piece would be first. And then to interrupt that is really challenging. But if we can catch ourselves rushing and slow down
Mhm.
as much as physically possible, it is pretty cool how the everything else kind of follows. And it's a really good foundational start.
I have a question for you, Jenna, about this. Are you getting pushback from you? Basically, original thinking means that somebody's not going to like it. So you're like, oh, I know this
Yeah.
is what traditional wisdom, so to speak, says about what creates ADHD and the behavior.
Mm.
You're basically saying there are other things, and that if we tend to the nervous system, and if we can get out of fight or flight, the you see a direct correlation to lessening of the ADHD symptoms. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So,
And I think there are a few schools of thought. One is, there is the idea out there from certain specific practitioners and authors that ADHD isn't real at all and it's just trauma. I'm not saying that.
right.
But then there's also the school of thought of, hey, you're drowning in your symptoms. Well, that's just the brain. That's just the ADHD
Mm,
brain. Too bad for you. I'm in the middle. I have a bit of a balanced approach,
yep.
which is I do believe the ADHD brain exists. I do believe it is different. I still feel different even in my regulated state. And because we are different, we have been pushed into a state of fight or flight. When you live in a world and you're just not quite fitting everywhere you go, you're late for this, you forgot that, you
Mhm.
didn't do this the way everyone else does. You don't see everything the way everyone else does. That is going to put you into fight or flight chronically long term. So we don't even need to identify with trauma to be in fight or flight. I never
Mm,
did. So I thought, oh, well, that's not me. I haven't experienced capital T trauma. So nope. But oh, just that being different in a world that wasn't made for us is
mhm,
enough to put us in fight or flight. And now we have this compound problem. And
mhm.
that if we can see it as that, oh, the regulation, that is work that can be done. The brain is what it is.
Yep.
So I have found that kind of balanced approach to be the most useful.
It's interesting. Gabor Mate's work around big T, little t trauma is also very
Yes.
helpful, where I feel like in a big way that he really has had such an impact on our
Mhm.
understanding of trauma. And as a clinician for almost 30 years, I would call things traumatic and dramatic. My
Mm,
point is they both matter. And
totally.
if it impacted you and if it's left an imprint on you that we need to deal with,
Mm,
whether we call it traumatic or dramatic doesn't matter. Like I like to
mhm.
move away from, if I can, listen, we can call it what we call it. What matters is we're
Mm,
identifying something that needs our attention. And that's sort of the important piece of that. But I like what you're saying that I think that there probably are still myths out there around being in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that it has to be
yeah,
big T trauma. And that has been long debunked, that is
totally.
not actually true. And that there's all
Yeah.
kinds of experiences that we have that can also, that can activate the nervous system. And hi, how about just living in this timeline? Can we talk about just
Yeah.
living right now in this timeline?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the thing I get. It's like, well, isn't everyone dysregulated or isn't everyone in this state? Yeah, probably. But
Yeah.
when you're an ADHDer and you assume all of your struggles are just because of the brain you have, that puts a stop to any growth.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about the dysregulation cycle itself
Mm,
and practical and sort of hands-on way that ADHDers can break that dysregulation cycle.
yeah, absolutely. So, one, my kind of any tool I teach always has two steps: awareness and interruption.
Mhm.
So, the awareness of it is first and foremost is how do I see myself in the cycle as opposed to the common belief that I hear from ADHDers is, well, when I have the energy, I have to push myself. I have
Mhm.
to get everything done. I have to go hard because I don't know when I'm going to crash again. But
Right.
when we think that way, we're assuming the crash is inevitable
Yep.
and we're doing a good thing by running around like chicken with our heads cut off,
Right, right.
to try to squeeze it all in before I inevitably crash. Well, when you start to realize, oh, it's all connected. The intensity leads to the crash. The more intense I am, the harder I crash.
Yep.
If we can get those boundaries into the middle
Right.
area, balance it out a bit so I'm not so high and not so low,
Mhm.
I am going to have a very different experience. But it starts with that belief of, oh, the crash is not inevitable. The crash is occurring after my intense fight or flight state. So that will motivate us then to work on that. Because when you are flying high and doing things and actually getting things done, it's kind of nice because the past 2 days you've been stuck on the couch.
Yeah.
Well, I finally am up and at 'em. I'm intense, I'm stressed, I'm rushing, but at least I'm getting stuff done.
Mm.
Really hard to be motivated to dampen that when you're stuck in the cycle itself.
Right. So is there a manic element to that phase of the getting it done?
Absolutely. When I first started this work, I did a post about just expressing my own experience of like, there was a time when I'm like, am I bipolar?
Right.
Because I am like high on life and I'm going hard or I can't get off the couch.
Right.
And from that post, that was like a very viral post with endless comments. I was actually diagnosed bipolar before I got my ADHD diagnosis. Like it can be very extreme,
Mhm.
these ups and downs where we're thinking it's something it's not. Even doctors are diagnosing it as something it's not. So absolutely, that intensity can feel good at times too. Like, wow, look at me go.
Right.
But then once you're in that crash after, it is really not worth it. And we know it's not worth it.
Yep.
But when we start realizing, oh, this is a string that connects, one leads to the other, it really starts to create some paths to get out of it.
So you have an ADHD regulation method that you share in this very
Mhm.
beautiful green book. Look how pretty that is, you guys, if you are looking on YouTube. So let's talk a little bit about nervous system thoughts and behavior regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, nervous system, being aware of that cycle and then interrupting it. So when I notice I'm rushing down the hall to a meeting with my shoulders around my ears,
Mm.
thinking about my 3 p.m. Meeting,
Yep.
oh, I'm dysregulated. Whew. Can I interrupt it? So I don't prescribe regulation as go to yoga, meditate. Those things, of course, are icing on the cake. Beautiful if you can do them.
Sure.
But my goodness, if you can, as you go through life, when you're aware you're in that heightened state, if you can interrupt yourself even for a few seconds,
Mm.
that is going to start building that muscle that's saying, hey, nervous system, we're actually safe. There is no bear chasing us. We're good. So that is the physical piece, is kind of
Yep.
thinking more in the moment, which for ADHDers, I think is more accessible than adding a task to your to-do list
Yep.
like meditation or yoga or something like that.
Yep.
So that's the physical piece. And it is about repetition, long term. And that's hard when we're dysregulated too, because when we're in that fight or flight, I want profound change. I want it now. And if it's not huge and intense and happening immediately, I don't have time for that.
Mm.
But then that's where we get into the thoughts and the beliefs of what are the ways I'm thinking that's keeping me in that dysregulated state.
Yep.
So the most common ADHD beliefs I get from clients, I'm behind, I need to catch up. That's
Mm.
number one. If you believe you're behind and need to catch up, there's no way you're going to slow down.
Yep.
It's just like that cognitive dissonance is way too strong.
Yeah.
So I can't do both things at once. So we have to work on those beliefs of, oh, where did that come from? Do I have evidence of that belief to be true?
Mm.
And even less important than if it, or more important than if it's true, is it dysregulating or is it regulating?
Right.
For me to believe I'm behind, I need to catch up is dysregulating.
Mhm.
I actually, historically, when I would think that, because I would think that a lot, you just perceive everything you need to do to catch up. And it's so overwhelming that I'm going to freeze, actually.
Mm.
I end up watching TV all day. It's not like it's helping me get caught up. So the belief
Right.
itself isn't serving much purpose. It's not helping. And so that's the work we want to do, is start identifying what am I thinking and believing that is keeping me in that dysregulated state.
Yep. There's something interesting about the awareness piece, and I think that's somewhat to the work that you're talking about is how do we bring awareness into this present
Mhm.
moment when you're feeling swept up by I'm late for a very important date. If that's in your mind, right? It's like
Yeah.
finding these ways of interrupting the pattern. And I think sometimes it's just what you're saying, raising your awareness around wanting to, around
Oh,
knowing
huge.
if I don't, I do know where
Mhm.
this leads and it's not the greatest. What are other ways though that
Mhm.
people in their real life can break this cycle? Um,
Yeah.
you in the book you talk about taking lunch breaks and spreading appointments out. So just talk a little bit about things that
Mhm.
people can actually do.
Yeah. So externally, we can, of course, support ourselves. So, what we want to do is have a mindset of sustainability, not intensity. So,
Mm,
if you have all your meetings on Monday to get them over with, that's an intensity, right? Monday is go, 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 go. And then the rest of the week, I can kind of collapse. It's like,
mhm,
that's not going to help this idea of regulation, which is slow and steady wins the race.
mm.
How can I function this way continuously for the next 10 years?
Yep.
If you are living your day in a way where if I said, okay, so you're going to do that for the next 10 years, because most of us have careers are long.
Yep.
So you probably are going to be doing it. Would you freak out at that? Or would you go, yeah, I can manage. I can manage that. I could see that. If we can't imagine doing our days
Yep.
long term, we're pushing too hard. So there is that, even just having that mindset will help you plan differently. Like, oh, how can I, this is my sound for regulation. Do, 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 do. How
Right.
can I do my way through the week?
Yep.
Where, yes, I've got a sprinkling of meetings here and a couple there, and I'm making room for my lunch break, and I'm functioning in a way
Mm.
that I'm not going to crash from. Just that mindset is gonna then have you naturally plan a little bit more, in a way that's gonna support your regulation.
Yep. I love the idea of it. I would always ask my clients to build in their rest, especially the ones who were go, go,
Mhm.
go. But of course, like they were leaping towards burnout and all the things that come with the go, go, go.
Yeah.
But if you actually put it in your calendar, not and just also not, I
Mhm.
mean, where does this is my question for you. Where does social media and tech stuff
Mm.
intersect with active ADHD?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is certainly not helping. I see it as, it is more dysregulating. With regulation work, it's hard to get into all the nuance and depths of the method on a short talk, but the core of it is, of course, as we all know, being grounded, but is being in reality. So reality is linear. Time and space are linear. I can only do one thing at a time. This mirrors dysregulation because there's a 50,000 things happening at once.
Yep.
It's a complex web. I'm holding up the phone for those not seeing.
Yeah.
The scrolling, the fast pace, the 2x button on TikTok,
Yeah.
like all of this is training our system. Rush, 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 fast,
Yeah.
fast, 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 fast. So my approach externally, the internal work is what's going to make or break this work, but the external stuff to support ourselves is I
Mhm.
go as analog as possible. So I have a wristwatch that's just a clock. There's
Mhm.
no smartness about it.
Mhm.
My number one tool is a paper calendar,
Mhm.
right? I do things as linearly, as simply as possible. Less is more is a very strong regulating approach.
Yep.
It's like, how can I do what I want to do with the least amount possible? That is going to support you in your regulation much more than the quickest, fastest apps that automate a bunch of stuff and have 10,000 alarms and reminders and lists. And oh, that can be very dysregulating.
Oh, and the optimizing of all things. It's funny. Prior to this current moment, so I've been working for many years. Obviously, I was always into like efficiency and optimizing things, but there's something about how everything is like optimized within an inch of its life now that I
Totally.
find so annoying. And I was listening to Gary Vanderchuck the other day talking about how now, because of AI, because of what's going on, that meeting in real life, like in real life meetups and things being analog are
Yeah.
all going to be flooding back into the zeitgeist because people are like AI means there is a plethora of data and information, and education doesn't have the same draw anymore. But
Mhm.
it's you yourself. It's your authentic self. It's creating real life. So maybe this is what it's meant to be. But I wonder, I think about people with ADHD and how if that pivot really happened socially, like in any real way, I feel like that could be helpful for ADHDers rather
Mhm.
than the other way around.
Yes, absolutely. And what's so tricky is when we're in fight or flight, though, we want that efficiency. I want to optimize things to inch of their life because I feel I'm
Mm,
behind. I need to catch up. So efficiency equals saved time. It's going to get me further ahead. Da, 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 da. But then we're back in the cycle and crashing again. And the blood flows left the brain. I'm not thinking clearly. It's such a tangled mess. But what's
mm,
so frustrating is the intuitive solution is going to make it worse.
yep,
Go faster, do it more efficiently,
yep.
hammer it out, get it done as fast as possible. That's worsening the problem
Mm,
versus like my world's very physical. I have a physical little pencil case here. I'm a white queen of whiteout. I'm like whiting out in my calendar when an appointment changes. Like, oh, it just naturally slows me down. But man, that has me functioning at a really, really regulated pace,
mm.
which before we got on, I was telling Terri that I'd seen her at a talk many years ago when I was very dysregulated and struggling. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. It's not a coincidence that I did not reach any sort of success until I got regulated. I slowed down. I valued simplicity. And my gosh, my rocket started flying
Yeah.
when that happened. And the very counterintuitive, right? We think, oh, if I'm optimizing and going fast, I'll be more successful personally, feeling good wise, but also professionally.
I could see, though, if we look at it from the macro view, that slowing down and really learning yourself, because
Mm,
that's what happens when we give ourselves, if you're into self-reflection and whatever, but we need space, we need expansion
totally.
to learn ourselves.
Mhm.
And before we can really help other people, I think it's helpful to know ourselves, and here's the thing, it's not that you can't help other people if you don't know yourself, but I find, at least in my experience online, that authenticity resonates
Mhm.
through the lens, right? It resonates if I'm speaking straight to camera and telling the truth about how I feel or what I think or my opinion about something. Those types of posts tend to do
Mm.
way better than the super formulaic ones of like other people and what they think you should do and whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And even more basic than that is when I'm slowed
Mhm.
down and doing the regulated thing, and this is slightly maybe controversial as well, I have not experienced paralysis in 2 years.
Wow.
I used to get stuck on the couch for days and weeks as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person, and you have that freedom. Like, if
Yep.
I'm stuck, I don't have to be anywhere, so I don't have those external forces putting me into anxiety movement, so I'm stuck, stuck, stuck. So when I slow down, it's kinda like a car. If you're stuck spinning the wheels, slamming on the gas to try to get out, you're actually
Right.
digging yourself deeper. When I take my foot off the gas and let the tires get a grip on the road, I'm actually moving faster because I'm not exerting a ton of energy, but not moving. And that's what happens when we're in
Yep.
dysregulation.
Absolutely. So what do you think about ADHD being misdiagnosed? Do you think that is there
Mhm,
any data to support that
mhm,
of girls versus boys? Is there a gender element
mhm.
to them at all in early development? Is
Right.
that there? Like, what do statistics say about ADHD? Does it show up more
As
in women or men?
mhm. It boys are diagnosed more in childhood
Hmm.
because of the external representation of
Hmm.
it. So there's the traditional hyper boy that can't focus, easy to identify. Oh, I can spot him in the room. He's causing me an inconvenience. So
Yep.
let's get that dealt with. Versus the girl, for me, I was a real goody goody in school. I
Hmm.
was sitting at the front, smiling, masking,
Yep.
wanting everyone to like me in people pleasing mode, that fawn of fight, flight, freeze fawn.
Yep.
So I wasn't bothering anybody. So I didn't get held aside. I
Yeah.
didn't get talked to. I didn't get any concern, even though
Mhm.
internally now I see, especially as I got older. I think when I was younger, it was more manageable. But as I got
Mhm.
older, I was not doing well internally, but you can't see that from the outside. So people are not concerned about you. So I do think boys are getting diagnosed more than girls. That does not say anything about the actual realities of
Right.
the statistical existence of ADHD,
Mhm.
but definitely seeing a huge influx of women in their 30s plus getting diagnosed. I work with people who've been diagnosed at 60. But that's just awareness, right? I do think there's concern out there of overdiagnosis. But I
Mm.
think the only people that are worried about that, this is my hot take, the only people that are worried about overdiagnosis are angry that people are getting support and they aren't.
Mm.
It's like, what is the harm? What is the
Right.
harm of someone thinking, I need supports, I need some help, I'm struggling?
Right.
Okay, I don't really care. I have people in my programs who do not have an official ADHD diagnosis. They think they might have it, they come in, they get help, they feel better. If they have it or not, do
Yep.
we care? I do not.
No, I'm so with you on that's not what it's about, right? It's not
Yeah.
about the name. It's about what are your pain points?
Yeah.
And what can I as a clinician do to help you make those pain points less? How can we
Exactly.
problem solve together? All right, I have one more
Mhm.
question for you, which is not about ADHD, but because I'm obsessed with boundaries. So that's what it's about.
Yes.
So personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle and how have you overcome it if you have?
Yes, boundaries and regulation are a beautiful tie-in because very uncomfortable to keep boundaries when you are in fawn, right?
Mm,
So my boundaries have gotten much healthier since I've regulated. One of those being with my work. When I first started as a therapist, anyone wants to see me at any time, I'll be there. I had no
yeah.
work boundaries. My kids would be at school all day and then I'd be seeing clients all night. That made no sense, yet I did it for way longer than I'd like to admit. And that uncomfortable dysregulating moment was the day
Mm,
that I asked my first client, could I actually see you in the daytime?
yeah.
I'm no longer taking evening appointments. And the funny thing was, every single person said, no problem.
Yep.
Well, what the hell? My discomfort, my fawn kept me from having that wonderful boundary that would have served me and my family so much better for probably 6 months to a year. Luckily, it wasn't too long.
Right.
But wow, what a gift that would have been had I been more regulated
Yeah.
or more able to have the uncomfortable conversation
Yeah.
that was not uncomfortable for them, but for me sooner. So that's what's really cool about regulation work too, is it really helps you get into those healthy boundaries faster.
I love it. You guys, the book is called The Simple Guide to ADHD Regulation, The Secret to Finding Balance, Getting Things Done, and Enjoying Your Life by Jenna Free. There it is. Jenna, tell us where we can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me at jennafree.com. I also have a podcast, ADHD with Jenna Free. And of course, you can find the book wherever books are sold.
Right on. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for your work you're doing in the world. I super appreciate it. I'm so glad you came on.
Thank you so much.